That's good. Thanks, Lisa. And happy to be part of the brown bag rotation and be able to speak about my team that I'm honored to be on, and especially to be with the presenters on this call. Chaz and Adam and yourself are awesome. So
Yeah,
thanks
I
for
gotta
having me.
say, I was super pumped when I saw this coming up on the schedule. Um, the way that I always describe the Threat Labs team is they are the unsung heroes of what makes SecOps work, And Lisa, you talked about what are the responsibilities of Threat Labs. I think that is an understatement. Like it is a responsibility, and I'll just to make it a little personal for me, like I came from a SIM and a SOC background, and when I was a detection engineer, you are on the hot seat, right? You're the one creating the rules. You're also the one that can bring down the entire system. And it was sometimes a stressful position to be in. And now you extrapolate that into Paul and his team. They're not the detection engineers for just a single customer. They are the detection engineers for hundreds of customers across this entire Sumo portfolio. And so they really, I mean, it is a big responsibility. They're writing rules, they're releasing rules. They have to make sure that they do their due diligence, that these rules won't explode, and they have a lot of really cool strategies that they employ to do their quality checks, Q&A of all these detections. So anyway, long-winded intro for me is I'm probably more excited about this than anyone. This is going to be a great session.
Paul, you didn't know you were going to have such a hype man on
I
this call,
know.
right?
Chaz is the best hype man. He really is. I'm honored.
Just from an intro perspective, Paul, would you just kind of introduce yourself? It's on the screen, and Chaz, just after he's done, do the same if you don't mind, just for anybody.
Yeah, definitely. So, um, like Lisa introduced, I'm the new engineering manager over the Threat Labs team. I've been with Sumo for a little bit over 6 years. I joined on the special ops hunting team, and worked, or when we formed Threat Labs, I was part of the threat research team, and eventually, have taken over managing or leading the team. I've worked as a SOC analyst a number of years ago. I've done some threat intelligence and consulting, and then ended up in the threat hunting and research portion. And like it says, I like video games and photography, and I've got twin giant sons, who are teenagers.
It's crazy how fast they become giants, isn't
Yeah, overnight it felt like.
it? Chaz?
That, yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that photography was in your skill set. I used to do a lot of photography as well. When I lived in Hawaii, I had the whole get up and did weddings and stuff. And sadly, I've sold everything, and my only camera now is an iPhone. And it's so embarrassing to even say that with kids. And but one day, I don't know, we should talk again. Maybe I should get back into it. But yeah, so Chas Clawson, VP of Security Strategy, been here at Sumo for 7 or so years, and very similar background to Paul. Been on the front lines. And I worked my way kind of up through professional services for a variety of federal customers. Back in the day, like I said, it was HP, ArcSight, and other MSSPs. Landed here at Sumo and have just really loved the product and the team. So glad to be here.
Awesome. So, Paul, just and Chaz, I mean, just some of kind of the core responsibilities or focus of the team. This slide hopefully does a good job of kind of navigating from the strategy to impact there. But I'll let you kind of give an expository journey to us on this.
Sounds great. Yeah, so the core responsibility of the Threat Labs team is really to embed the security, SMEs into the process. We, as Chaz said, we do the detection engineering, which is a very important portion of the team's, core responsibilities. We maintain the pipeline, so everything that comes into the cloud or cloud SIM, is part of or is owned by my team, from a parser mapper, and then the running the rules or the detections on those records. Um, so we and I see Julian. It's good to see you, in the chat. Long time no see on that one. The so my team owns the pipeline that takes the raw logs that goes into the SIM, and then we build the detections around that. One of the things or the era shifts that we've kind of built over the last few years is going from very much a not necessarily a volumetric, we the most rules are a parity standpoint, but shifting over to um, threat driven and threat-centric detections, which meant that we built the threat research side that goes in and identifies emerging threats, current threats, and make sure that we have detections that are valuable or are pertinent and relevant to the threats that our customers are seeing. We go in and or try to thoroughly vet those, make sure that we're building it off of applied threat research, so we have an understanding of the threat actor, the behavior that we're targeting or we're working to detect. And we have a structured process that we'll go through later in the deck of building out testing scenarios and making sure that we are delivering those high fidelity, high efficacy detections for our customers that have been vetted and made sure that we are producing the value we need and making sure that we're cognizant of the the delicate balance of meeting all of our customers' needs as well as not blowing our customers up or causing platform issues. I think
One
good.
one thing I was just going to say is like as you look at this slide, like the strategy and the foundation being fundamental to everything above it, it's maybe behind the curtains for those that are not aware. It's interesting to be part of like a SaaS vendor or a solution full of developers where you have to bring in outside security expertise into the development process because you could be an amazing engineer and coder or what have you, but not have that in the trenches frontline experience as a SME. And it's been really cool to watch. You know, Paul participated in all of the early work as we built out the SOC Analyst Agent, that new AI agent that we're bringing to market. And it was a lot of here's the AI response to this investigation, or here's their hypothesis, or here's the investigative steps that it took. Paul or your team, can you come in and validate? Is it doing it the right way? Is it investigating it as it should? Are the recommendations or hypothesis accurate from your vantage? And so it's just really cool merging that security expertise with the development and seeing that all jive together and then ultimately become a product that's going to be used by the front line, like those that are fighting the good fight, right? As security analysts lean more on AI, hopefully a lot of that subject matter expertise is fused into the product so that will make their jobs easier. But just wanted to add a little bit of color there.
Yeah, it's been an actually awesome process to be able to not only provide feedback on how the agent is, but actually be part of the formulation. And I really appreciate the direction that Sumo has taken to bring us in early at the start of that project and ask questions and make sure that we're building things not just off of like developer or the developers are awesome, but making sure that we are meeting the needs of the customers and doing the job that you as the customers using our product are doing. And I appreciate the ability to be plugged into both the product and platform and working embedded in these Tiger teams or the development teams to help make sure that we are delivering a product that meets everybody's needs in that case.
Awesome.
Very cool.
So lexicon, yes. One of the fun things about security is you can be sitting next to everybody, or you can have a bunch of security professionals in a room, and chances are only a handful of people will know what you're talking about. So kind of break or the to the point earlier or the last side, as a embedded SME, we get to help um, get a shared lexicon or not necessarily correct, but make it so that there or communicate not only what the security practices are or the workflows or ideology, but make sure that share we have that shared terminology so we can correct some misconceptions and make sure that we're getting over miscommunication that may mean that may lead to different developments. So in that sense, Threat Labs is kind of broken into two main components, the threat research and the threat detection engineering. And we're often, um, as we have in the bottom of this slide, the largely the perception of this team is that we deploy the rules or the content for that. But there's a lot more thought and process and rigor that goes into making sure that we are providing or we're supporting the developers, the platform, the product, and you as the customers throughout this, and doing so intentionally and purposefully focused on the threats and making sure that the SIM is detecting or we're building detections that and assessing the threats that we can or the activities that we could detect with the SIM. That leads to making or sometimes saying that there are things that the SIM is not good at detecting at, and we definitely are making efforts or have made efforts and continue to improve those efforts to allow your or your security products to pass through those alerts and make sure that you're getting the value in the SIM from the investments that you've put in security products. Um,
Would
so
you say, looking at this structure, I mean, I would say a two-legged stool, but a two-legged stool will fall over still, but you can't do one side without the other. I want maybe you could unpack a little bit for everyone how involved like the parsers and mappers and the deployment of content is, because maybe that's a little less glamorous part of your responsibility, but ultimately, like when you're managing, I don't even know how many thousands of parsers and mappers that we have in the product that are like, it's a moving target because a vendor will change their log format and maybe not even tell us and break, the data pipeline. And then you guys have to quickly sprint to make fixes to deploy them transparently while our customers are sleeping, which is awesome, maybe on a biweekly basis or whenever you push content out. But that's kind of like a gruesome part of the job, but ultimately everything is dependent on that, right? You have to have the foundation of good data in order to even do threat detection or, later on the AI investigation.
absolutely right. And we'll get to that. There's another slide that'll touch on that, but that is a critical call out that the team owns the pipeline. We are we get we set that configuration to bring the raw logs in through the parsers and go through the mapper, and then ultimately make it so that the records can be detected off of. And there are, I think we support around a little over 150 products in the mappers. And there are a lot of mappers in that make it so that those records, and to your point, there's times where we're dealing with are handling vendor changes at the logging or at the event level. And some of them are not fun or nice to handle. If you ever look at the Palo Alto parsers, not to call them out, there are some the firewall logs are painful, but the point is being able to understand what's changing and making sure that we're selecting and normalizing those important fields or values in those logs so that we can build the detect or the rule content or the rules and those detections around. So that is it's interesting being basically, yeah, over what becomes a record and is becomes useful for SIM customers by making sure that we are correctly configuring all of the various fields and supporting it quickly because yes, things change and the wrong field and the wrong or map to the wrong part will definitely impact a lot of customers and blow up rules. And we want to reduce that pain and improve the security content that you guys can detect on.
So Thomas Mueller is sharing in the pain, saying that he's dealt with Palo Alto in the past, and I don't even know that they're the worst offender. I mean, all vendors, they make changes not really realizing the downstream effects that it might have on the thousands of customers that are dependent on their logs, but that's what we're here for, right? We got to take that burden off our customers.
It's very true. Yep. Want to make it so we can maximize that detection potential from those logs as well as deliver good rules for it. Yeah, so this slide basically covers the pipeline, and I like the high grade signal fuel and the rockets at the end. The graphics are great. So we do like it's an unglamorous part or unglamorous portion of the job, but it's key to making it so that the SIM pipeline works, and making sure that we're making decisions or trying. We also own the record schema portion, so what becomes a schema field to be able to normalize across that. I think our normalized rules definitely max or try to maximize the value from that from a making it so we can do network. All the firewalls are going to be mapped to that. You can build detection content off of any firewall with the normalized fields. Authentication is another big one, making it so that you can look for potential brute force or successful brute forces and the always elusive impossible travel rules that we have. But making it so that you can do those or you can utilize, and my favorite, endpoint logs, and doing command line or detections on the command line and the various base images or the parent processes and so forth that are there. So it's a lot of fun to see like the nuts and bolts of this, but more importantly to see what we open up from a detection standpoint as we do the work of doing that. And I've got a great staff engineer who is very, very detail oriented and owns that schema, and I greatly appreciate his efforts to make sure that we're making good decisions with an understanding of the impact that those decisions have on the customer base.
Chaz, this slide kind of hits at some of you and I were talking about this even yesterday, how like AI without good data, refined data is really not very useful. I mean, so this process and the process that the Threat Labs team goes through and our engineering team in general of getting AI ready data to the point that it can allow you to accelerate response and prioritize risk and kind of do some of these right hand of the slide things is because of not only because but certainly a large uh, aided by the Threat Labs team.
No, I love this analogy. Everybody's like living the AI hype like in the full extent. And so sometimes you just assume AI is going to solve all the things, and that's not really the case. AI is not a good real-time detection solution. It just isn't designed that way. But what it does really good, as is depicted here, is correlation across context and being able to, you know, take structured data and then immediately provide intelligence in the form of, MITRE or attack patterns or what have you. But if you're pouring like sugar water into your gas tank, you're not going to have good results, right? And we joked about it like garbage in, hallucinations out is like a real problem. And part of the reason why AI slop is like such a common term, but when you feed it the right like high grade fuel, man, you really see AI take off in ways that is quite shocking, to be honest. So I really love this analogy.
Definitely agreed. Yep, it's very interesting to see the little tweaks at the beginning of the pipeline or the process and how they impact um, the AI output or being able to get AI to do the right things with it. I think we talked a little bit about this, but my team does own that pipeline management, and or I've talked a lot about this actually, it feels like over the last few minutes. Um, but to the point of being able to align the raw logs into those detection value and an important component of being able to make it so that the artificial intelligence that we're building around these detections has the good or has good data to build off of, is really important being able to, I think one of the parts that I forgot to touch on that last one is the MITRE ATT&CK tags and seeing or understanding how to use the MITRE ATT&CK framework to label those detections and see how the various or how Mobot and the SOC Analyst Agent will take the tags or the portions of that record and not just understand what is detected within or explain or understand the rule and what the signal or why the signal was detected, but be able to give to tie that into an important narrative for the SOC analyst to be able to make decisions off of after it processes the attack tags and the nature of the detection and what that means from a larger story in the insight. And so being able to understand or like I said, be intentional on what we build into the record, into the signals or the rules that generate those signals to do this.
How
And the
often are you sorry, didn't mean to interrupt there, but
fine.
maybe you can it, I don't know if it might change depending on time of year and just the threat landscape and everything, but how often on average would you say that you're pushing, parsers, mappers, detections, etc., into the product through your normal workflow in a given week or month?
So we generally have a release every or once every 2 weeks. Sometimes we'll release more often than that, depending on if we need to make an emergency change or we have a critical fix that goes out. But we're absolutely improving the parsers and the mappers get regular updates and get the most love. Especially as we get feedback from customers on these things. We want to hear from all right. We want to hear if there's impact from the changes we have, and so we can make sure that the data is good going into the pipeline. Garbage in, hallucinations out. Garbage out is not the ideal way for your SIM to produce. We want to have those high fidelity or high efficacy signals. So every 2 weeks, we try to get a release out. From a detection standpoint, it is largely based off of a campaign process, and that is making sure that we're going through and building detections off of at least one major set of detections every month or every quarter. And sometimes we'll roll that in a large batch, and other times we move detections out as we can spread out across there. But that takes time, especially depending on the rules that we want to do. So to talk about the campaign process, this is a shift that we started a couple years back. Instead of just kind of going and creating rules, we wanted to package up the campaign or package up the rules in a sense that we are grouping them by excuse me, either threat group or threat actors or known attacks. And we want
So the
to
old process was called the spaghetti against the wall approach,
yes.
and now it's like very, very focused on, yeah, like you said, technologies or attacker, which is super cool to watch you guys work that way.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. To introduce themes, we had loose groupings, and we definitely tried to introduce detections as needed. But just the evolution to move from um, into the more threat-centric things to grab an attack vector or a data source or the theme and being able to build detections around it. And you utilize some of the open source tools that we have. We use Vectr, which is a great red team, purple team tool that allows you to build campaigns inside and track to MITRE or map directly to the attack framework and make sure that you've got like or a data-driven portion or aspect of the themes. But the idea is to not just do threat centric, but to take the research and the threat intelligence that's out there to build the detection, make sure the detections are feasible, that they make sense, that they drive or they deliver the detection and the context around the detection for the analysts that are using it, And that's led to a number of conversations, both fun and hard in some cases, of it's not necessarily like a master's or a thesis or defend your thesis, but it is pretty much a defend your campaign and your detection strategy part that has been fun in the team. And we've found that sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's been, and I'm definitely throwing Adam through a number of different slides as you see there. Um,
All good.
we look at not only from a data source. So I think the spaghetti at the wall is maybe accurate, but it was largely data source driven in the past. What data sources do we see a number or use the most, and what detections are available from those logs to shift the paradigm into what is the attack scenario that we want to, or those use cases that we want to identify. What are we seeing? What are we hearing from customers? What are we seeing that are emerging out that we need? And in the past, or and hopefully, or in the future as well, we'll look for data sources like our Linux Sysmon, or Sysmon for Linux, and the Laurel use cases where there's a vast data set out there that needs to, or that we're not seeing much adoption for, but if we build content around, we can hopefully inspire or urge customers to pick up these data sets and use these frameworks that are available to be able to build detections off of those. And so by shifting from to a threat centric and then finding the data sources that we recommend building those off of, we can then deliver the value and help customers add better and richer data sources to their environments. I think hopefully that hit your point, Chaz.
Yep, that's awesome.
Yep. So another part of my team, and I think we had it in the bottom, is being able to plug in as SME experts. Writing blogs in the mindshare aspect is a lot of fun. Be able to take the learnings that we come from these campaigns and build or and share blog posts, not only on like how to use the campaign, but some of the gotchas and portions that we've done. And then my favorite is to be able to take and share learnings and observations from like consolidate or take it from the community and the industry because there's a lot of great articles and a lot of great sharing that happens. But make it so that we can consolidate those and give a Sumo view into how to search in your environment, how to hunt for these things, and what detections are available from the team, and how to build your own detections off of the different attack vectors. So, I mean, we try to cover a number of things, but like I said, we're building, or like Chaz pointed out, we're building to a number of our customers, but being able to allow or to help facilitate what is built off of. So Dan is one of my threat researchers and wrote a great blog post while the rest of the team was on vacation. He knocked it out of the park by both holding down the fort and writing a blog post on the Shahlud with the npm or the packages that we're spreading across GitHub and so forth.
It's cool to see too, like how the defenders generally operate as like a community, right? At the end of the day, we're all, hopefully good guys on the right side. Um, but sometimes we're doing, original research. Sometimes we're leveraging research that's just out there in the community or even, public repositories of detections. And hopefully, as I think all vendors should be working together and customers should be sharing their knowledge as well, but we can raise the tide for all boats. And that's cool to see because, you know, I always say adversaries are certainly collaborating and they're sharing their own what works and what doesn't work. So we need to be doing the same thing and making that happen, whether it's through threat labs, blog posts, detections, or just customer feedback. Um, and we actually have some cool initiatives. Kind of, I don't get ahead of myself, but we've got some cool initiatives coming um, coming around the corner too, where we're going to facilitate the ability for the community to come together even better. So anyway, just yeah, I love seeing this kind of research that we put out there in the ether for everyone to consume.
Yep.
There's another one from our very own Paul Sheck.
Real quick
Nice.
before we move on to this one, there was a
Yeah.
question that came in the Q&A from Raphael. How can Sumo's clients have access to the Threat Labs content? What is the deliverable related to this service?
Great question. You have access to our content, the content primarily being those detections in there. So my team directly interacts. Like we write those rules in the Cloud Sim. I think, or hopefully that hits the point. And then what we produce from a mind share, we post on the Sumo Logic blog.
Are
So
the detections also available in a GitHub repository in some form of like programmatic interface as well?
not yet. So we have the public facing content catalog, which will give at least the description of the detections, but the detections themselves, like the match expressions or the details of, or like other than the description and summary of the rule, those are only in Cloud Sim at this point. I think there's been some debate on how to expose those, but you can see you can see the detections, excuse me, in the content catalog that's open to everybody.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yes, I love the threat intelligence plug here, and I forgot that I wrote this blog. That is that was one of
Wasn't
the
very long ago, but yeah.
yeah, it was yeah, okay. The on-prem SharePoint, the tool shell. Yeah, this was a really cool one to see from that. But to the threat intelligence, I think one of the exciting part or the forays that we've gone into from Cloud SIM is to unify that threat intelligence aspect, make it so that we can bring in not only do we offer or have the two global feeds from CrowdStrike and Intel 471, but making it so that customers can go in and manage and run the threat intelligence and not just keep threat intelligence to the SIM, but make it so it's more open to the core platform as well. I think that's hopefully coming soon. I don't know where we are necessarily from that point, so hopefully I didn't share too much.
No.
But
Chaz, one of the things that we talk about a good bit, especially with these built-in feeds, is just the value that they provide. I mean, it's not something that we charge extra for, and certainly in this format, with your perspective and Paul's, like I think it's really a great opportunity to tell our customers, that this is available. If you're not taking advantage of it, you're kind of leaving certainly value on the table. It feels like so. Just wanted to make sure to plug this in, especially in light of the blog that Paul wrote, where that was kind of a key factor in detecting something that might have been malicious in an environment. It's a good opportunity to again make sure you're all aware of this.
Yeah, and this unified threat intel that we have, which is fairly recent, there's still more improvements coming down the pipe because we do really want to make it easy for you to not only use the feeds we provide for free, but also bring in your own feeds, use them in at search time, detection time, and maybe even playbook runtime, right? So as part of the logic gates and steps as you do that automation. So we're continually increasing the value that you're getting through threat intelligence. So try and stay close to updates as they come out.
Yeah, for sure. Paul, I skipped over one thing. You talked about it a little bit earlier, but you and I were talking yesterday, I think it was, about just the different places that MITRE ATT&CK shows up in our products and the tagging that's involved. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about how this kind of plays out on a day-to-day basis. What maybe customers need to be cognizant of as it relates to kind of integrating this into their security process.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, the as you can see, this Adams slide here shows kind of the new or the old and the new portion. So
Mhm.
if you're familiar with the signals and insights, there's a lot of, or we generally have a lot of tags or MITRE ATT&CK tags that have been tagged to those rules. And with the wonderful addition of or the SOC Analyst Agent, we're making it so that we can go in and add more specific context for both the agent and the users consuming the output of those agents. And so in this sense, or in this view, you can see the attack tags on the left that are they're kind of an eyesore, and it's hard to determine what is useful. But by being able to control the quality um, of the rules and use the reasoning that the AI models have today and the agentic frameworks to go in and understand or to point out what is the relevant tag to be able to use or for the analyst to know and classify what the activity in the insight is. And this is a fun one because it goes in and shows the verdict that the agent is making on the insight and recommendations, as well as the key findings or the summarization portion of this, taking the very data intense and rich portion or views of the signals and making it so that you can quickly understand what happened and using that as a pivot point to move on to what you need to do or make a decision on the actions that need to be taken from that, and whether you want to go in and do some further investigation, which will be a very fun feature in the future.
And this is really kind of an end product view of that oil refinery, a little bit where you've got the raw material on the left-hand side and then high value signals and then AI. And it's just kind of showing you that AI output here only made possible by the fact that data has been refined to a point that AI can say, this is valuable, this is valuable, this is valuable, and allowing acceleration from because of that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, the refinement process um, is very key here, and it's interesting or it's a fun shortcut to go from um, to kind of see the outcomes from all of that hard work that happens behind the scenes of being able to take and tag and classify that activity, and then see what the really cool stuff that AI can do with that data, and helping us understand what's happening in our environments.
Yeah, cool. So we'll kind of open the floor for questions here. If anyone has questions, or Chaz or Paul, certainly anything that we haven't covered yet that you'd like to talk about, it's a good time for that. But,
No, I would just throw one call to action for the customers too, is if you guys have um, a gap in what you feel like is your, security posture or detections or what have you, certainly reach out because they can queue those campaigns up, like just like we're doing right now with an active like AI telemetry campaign, trying to figure out everybody's massively rolling out AI across the stack. We're sucking in all that telemetry and figuring out how do we detect bad stuff or abusive AI or shadow AI. If there's other like emerging technologies that you guys have, or even, maybe older technologies but still important, reach out to Paul or myself or Sumo and just say, hey, we'd love to see some more, you know, content around this particular thing, and we'll definitely queue that up. So don't feel like it's a one-way street from us to you.
Yep, definitely route those through. I think we have QBRs, the roadmap sessions. We've got the customer success, the account teams, product as well. There's many ways that we can facilitate that feedback loop, and understand what's not just from a technology standpoint, but what threats are you facing? What keeps your your security team up at night, and so we can see what we can build from a commonality across customers and make sure that we're we're staying abreast of the threats and the concerns or the yeah, the threat actors out there. It's a constantly moving thing.
Chaz, that was something cool that you were just talking about is kind of this interesting world of, maybe legacy items or, kind of IT infrastructure that may be, aging a bit all the way up to the latest bleeding edge that it can be equally important across your organization. Sometimes it may be a battle day in and day out, which one is more prone to to bring bad things to you, things that are legacy or things that are bleeding edge. But yeah, being able to accommodate that equally is a cool thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. I watched the OWASP or I think it was Black Hills Information Security OWASP top 10 on AI yesterday, and they ended the presentation with um, AI definitely is the new hot thing, but it's oftentimes not the thing that gets you compromised. It's because it is yet another layer of new hotness on the same old issues that haven't been fixed. And so being equal or balancing what is new with what is old and understanding that they both offer equal opportunity to lead to problems from a security standpoint.
Yeah,
And not get distracted with the hype as well as making sure you're covering your bases and patching your things.
people are still people, and you're probably the most vulnerable thing in environments. But